Hello, I'm Margaret, and for my project, I'm focusing on how illness impacts artists in the late 18th to early and mid 19th century. And I just really wanted to focus on how they viewed and created work, common themes among their work, and I also wanted to tie that into how mental illness as a whole was viewed and how the treatments were, and how that in return caused people to view the artists in a specific way and react to their work in a specific way. Um, this topic intrigued me because I feel that artwork is a reflection of how an artist views the world and how they think. And I feel that mental illness impacts a great deal on how a person views life. So I really want to explore how they depicted this in their work, um, and just how an artist is able to visualize a mental state and that can express the feelings to the audience, which I think is really interesting. Um, so I plan on focusing on um, five artists. But before I go into detail on the artists, I wanted to focus on neurasthenia, um, which is just a term they used for like symptoms of anxiety, insomnia, headaches, depression, heart like increased heart rate. So they called it neurasthenia, and they believed it was caused usually in upper class women, because the physicians assumed that they had a very delicate nervous system, and that could be connected to the increased participation of women in society in the 19th century, and that it was basically too stressful for women to handle the stress of participating in society, basically. So the treatment usually consisted of isolation, and just removal from society, just try to get rest and just basically hold up for a while. So I added on my Pinterest page the yellow wallpaper, which is a short story written by Charlotte Perkins Gilman, and she suffered from neurasthenia. And this is basically to counteract the physician's treatment because she felt that it wasn't a good idea and it just was making things worse. So this is basically to counteract that, and it's a story about a woman whose physician is also her husband, and he locks her up, or doesn't lock her up, but her treatment is in a very small room, and it has this aging yellow wallpaper. And basically, she's holed up in here, and she's writing a secret journal, which is the yellow wallpaper. And she basically gets really intrigued and fascinated with the yellow wallpaper, and ends up getting obsessed with it, and she gets crazy, or she shows signs of insanity. And that's what this story is about. So I thought it really captured the public's view on neurasthenia. So I added that in. And then next I have Thomas Atkins. And this is his work right here. Um, and he was born in Philadelphia in 1894. And he lived with his parents, and his mother suffered from depression in the later years of her life. And a lot of speculation that that's what caused her to die pretty prematurely. Um, and he became a figure teacher, Thomas Atkins, and he was very close to his students. He actually met his wife through one of his classes. She was his student. But that ultimately, at the height of his career, during one of his classes, it's called the Affair of the Loincloth, which led him to be fired. And what happened was that he ripped off a loincloth of the male model in one of a female classes, and it outraged their parents, and there was 5 male students who complained to the school board, so he ended up being fired. And this devastated him, and people say that he never really recovered from this event. So he began, after this event, to focus on um, portraiture, and this includes this painting, which is titled The Actress, um, which was not exhibited during his lifetime. It was actually just in his studio, and then after he died, it was found. And this really highlights a melancholy tone and just a weariness. She's slouched posture, teary-eyed, a slight head tilt. In this work, it was said that he really connected to the feelings and symptoms of female neurasthenia. So this is his work, The Actress. And then we have Thomas Dewing, which this is his work right here. And this work is The Young Girl Seated, which I think shows similar characteristics to The Actress. She has glazed eyes, and she's turned away from the viewer, and it just shows a very sense of fragility, which could be responding to the changing role of women in society, but it does have a darker tone to it. So next, there is Camille Claudio, which is her right here. And she was a student, muse, and lover of Auguste Rodin, and they had a very intense relationship, which ended very badly. And then after which she began destroying her statues. She would disappear for long periods of time. She would show signs of paranoia, which she was later on diagnosed with schizophrenia. She began stating that Rodin stole her ideas, and she just basically lived in reclusion in her workshop until her brother admitted her to a psychiatric hospital, where she ended up remaining for the last 30 years of her life. And then right here is one of her statues that she didn't destroy, which is very lovely. Next, I have Theodore Grotto, and he created a series of portraits called Portraits of the Insane, which I really think showcased the 18th century view that there was two mental states. There was normal, and then there was just insane. So I added 3 of his portraits. This one right here, which is of the insane woman. And the thing about his work, with these especially, is that they're very disturbing. There's an odd sense of unbalanced, which I think is really interesting. So this is one of his paintings, and then he has another one called Portrait of a Kleptomaniac, right here. And I like the dark background, really sets the tone. And then this one over here is Woman with a Gambling Mania. And I think there's a similarity between these two. But overall, the tone is very dark, and it's very uncomfortable, which I think he wanted to stress. And then lastly, I have Edvard Munch, who was an artist who grew up and is now known as Oslo, Norway. And he had a pretty traumatic childhood. His mother died of tuberculosis when he was 5 years old, and his older sister, Sophie, died of it as well at 15 when Edvard was 13. And he was just a very sick growing up, all very often. And his younger sister was actually diagnosed with a mental illness and was in hospitalization for a really long time until she died of cancer. And then his other sibling, Peter, also died at the age of 30 with pneumonia. And a lot of this impacts his artwork, and he has a constant theme of death, despair, grief, and illness, including the sick child, which is right here. And there's a couple different variations. There's this one over here as well. And these ones are a lot about his sister Sophie. And there's another painting, which is right here, which is based on when he was informed of his father's death in 1889. and it really just showcased the dark loneliness and isolation. Um, Another one of his paintings or another one of his works that's really popular is Melancholy, right here. Edward was struggling with insanity a lot in his life. And he was hospitalized on and off for respiratory problems, nerves, alcoholism, insomnia, agoraphobia, chronic depression, and anxiety, which is shown in his most famous work, The Scream, which captures his inner hell. And I found a quote that he said about this painting, and I feel like it best captures the emotion. Um, I was walking down the road with two friends when the sun set. Suddenly the sky turned as red as blood. I stopped and leaned against a fence, feeling unspeakably tired. Tongues of fire and blood stretched over the bluish-black ford. My friends went on walking while I lagged behind, shivering with fear when I heard the enormous infinity scream of nature, which I think really captures the anxiety he had. And then there's another one right here, which is really similar, called Despair, and it has the similar road here, or bridge, with the sky. So this is what I'm planning on doing for my paper. So